What's up, Nerf Herders? Hope you're all doing well out there and having a great day. So we finally got the impossible Zack Snyder Justice League, the Snyder Cut. It is dawned upon us here. HBO Max got the exclusive release for this here. This just dropped yesterday, and we did watch it last night. This is insane that this even happened. We all know the stories about this whole thing, and when they brought Joss Whedon in, and we basically got the Justice League, which was a giant pile of steaming shit across the board, and this push for the Snyder Cut has been this ongoing thing of fans and people tied to the movie. They allowed him to do it. It's a 4-hour epic, and it's among us here. And we're going to talk about this here. This is going to be a non-spoiler review, just kind of sharing our thoughts with this. But first we dive into everything here, if you could hit that subscribe button and click that bell for notifications and give the video a thumbs up. We're going to start right off the bat here because the big question, of course, is this better than what we had gotten 4 years ago with the first cut of the Justice League? That's the big question. So, is it better?
Yes.
Yes, a lot better.
Yeah, 100% better, dude. For everyone who's talked to me in person, I'm not a fan of really anything that's come before this. In terms of like the Snyderverse, I'm not a huge Man of Steel fan. I'm not a big Batman versus Superman fan. And then the Justice League, I was just like, okay. And then this came out, and it was surprisingly like a lot better. I mean, I want to give Zack Snyder complete props. The dude accomplished something that most filmmakers will never accomplish, and that's getting their own vision put out there.
Yes.
I thought that was incredible that the studio allowed him to do it. I will say that the studio made themselves look like a bunch of fucking idiots because they basically said, hey, we screwed up. And I also want to say Joss Whedon is a fucking idiot too, because what he did to Zack Snyder's vision, I mean, this is a great movie, but like it shows you truly how bad the Justice League was.
Yeah, 100% in every aspect. This is a much further superior film. I don't have any adjectives I can throw in there. It is such a superior film. And yeah, I definitely, man, like for Snyder to come in and granted, anyone can make the argument, which is like, all right, well, if you needed 4 hours to put your vision out there, which is the tendency with Zack Snyder, there's always these super extended cuts because he overfilms, but you got to play the studio game. The studio is not going to let you put a 4-hour movie into the theater and such. So that's why this is really nice that we were able to actually experience this the way that he would want it to be intended to. This was presented in a 4:3 aspect ratio, which I thought looked beautiful. I didn't bother at all. I love seeing the big screen of everything on there, just like what IMAX presents, but also 4:3 is how we grew up, man. That's all your old school presentation for films when you would watch a VHS and your, shows on TV growing up as a kid and stuff. So it's really nice to see a 4:3 aspect ratio. Did that bother you at all?
Not really. No. I mean, I noticed it at first, but like it didn't take me out of the experience. And after, probably 20, 30 minutes, I just didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
But that's how I usually am, whether it be widescreen or what have you, whatever the formatting is and how it fits to your TV. I don't really notice it after a while. And I appreciate the fact that HBO wants to give him his true uncut vision. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So this was filmed like that for a reason, because they were planning on putting out an IMAX, and IMAX shows at 4:3 because it's not like it's squaring it up. It's really just widening the top and bottom so you get more at those sizes. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not like compressing anything. So I thought it looked beautiful. I thought it looked really great. The coloring was fantastic. I thought it looked a million times better.
Yeah,
and
dude.
I even noticed the CGI looked better. All of the characters looked better. And I think just overall, it felt more, cared for. Like there was a lot of time taken to make sure it looked great. It wasn't just some big mega conglomerate, like, let's just put this out there to make money. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah, I agree, man. I think everything looked really nice. There were a couple spots in there you could tell where they had to shift budget because I believe he was given $70 million to kind of put this together, and a lot of that definitely went to attention to detail on Steppenwolf because Steppenwolf looked a million times better and looked incredible throughout the whole thing. And that character, as far as what his vision was as, being a villain and carrying out what he needed to do, was so much more fleshed out in regards to the mission, the relationship to Darkseid. It didn't just feel like this generic power grabbing thing. There was a lot that was into that character that got fleshed
Yeah.
out, that made him a much more compelling villain. The one thing too, outside of this, being in comparison to the first cut of Justice League, is definitely going to be the length. A 4-hour movie is a long movie to sit through. As far as that length, did you feel the length with this, or did it run by comfortably?
I mean, I don't think it felt terrible. I appreciate that it's broken up into parts. So we have, obviously, part 1 through 6 and then an epilogue. I appreciated that because it gives you kind of places to pause if you need to get up and use the bathroom and stretch. It didn't feel as long as the Lord of the Rings movies, so I I'll
Oh,
give him
that's
that. He
awesome.
was able to make a 4-hour movie feel less than 4 hours. It did
Yeah.
feel long, but I think it was needed because there was so much that the original Justice League movie didn't flesh out, and it felt so rushed. And then going back, now watching this, you go back to that and you're like, they didn't set up anything. They kind of just threw you in and expected you to understand what's going on. This, they
Yeah.
literally told you everything.
Yep.
They gave you the great setup for Steppenwolf. Why is he on this mission to get these cubes, the mother boxes? Why is he loyal to Darkseid and what that relationship looks like? And then it did a great job of setting up how the various mother boxes got to where they were and who was protecting them. We didn't
Yes.
get a lot of that in the original Justice League. It just throws you in from the start. There's no setup to anything.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, man. That's what was so nice about having that length. And I didn't find myself checking time once. Like when it's long. It feels like a 4-hour movie because you're sitting there for 4 hours for sure. But I didn't look at my clock or my phone where my clock resides. I didn't look at that one time, like trying to see, oh, how much more do we got? How much more do we got? Like it was more like this viewing was an experience more than watching a movie. Like you're just kind of experiencing, almost if you went to go see like a very long theatrical play. It's like you're just kind of
Totally.
experiencing this as it's happening. One thing I really, really liked about this too, and what I hated so much about the Justice League, was the comedy that Joss brought into that just felt so forced and out of place. There were a couple of moments that, definitely had a little bit of fun to it, but it was just a lot of that forced comedy that doesn't feel like it fits the scene. This movie almost felt funnier, but with natural comedy, like just natural moments that would break the scene a little bit, but not because it was forced. It was just the way that the scene would kind of progress. The only person that really was a forced comedic role and had a couple of weird moments was the Flash, but that's kind of where his role is. He's the young skittish kid, and some
Yeah,
hits,
he was a
some
little
missed.
awkward, he was a little awkward in some points. Um, I think if I was to trim this down, I think I would have eliminated some of the Flash parts, just because I think you got a lot of that Joss, or not that Joss, the Zack Snyder slow mo stuff with him,
A
and
lot, dude.
sometimes he overdoes it with slow mo. I get that it's his style, and it's really kind of his little thing that he does, but with the Flash especially, I think a lot of stuff was drawn out. And I think the Flash was already kind of established with the original Justice League movie. I didn't think they did a terrible job with that. This gave you a little bit more, but I don't know if it was any more necessary. I think the most important thing in this is that they gave you a clear understanding of Cyborg,
Yes,
why he's
dude.
there, his father, him, the relationship, and he really became the integral part of this story. This was kind of his movie.
Yeah, dude, 100%, man. Cyborg went from being, I mean, really just this sideline pissed on character who, if you could see how much attention to that character Zach had, and then Josh just eliminated it. And Ray
Yeah.
Fisher, I remember him being extremely pissed, man, and like being outspoken with how everything had kind of went down. And you see why, because that character is extremely fleshed out in this. And ultimately, as far as like the emotional tie to the film and everything, had the best arc. I mean, even more than the Superman storyline. I thought the story with Ray Fisher and Cyborg in there was the most emotional part of the whole movie. He's fleshed out. He's a great character in this, a really good character.
Yeah, going back to the Justice League, you really see how dirty they did him.
Yeah, dude,
Um,
bad.
I mean, in the Justice League, he was nothing. He was a nobody. He had hardly any role in that film. He was doing things that you didn't really understand much about because there was no, backstory to explain why he has these abilities or powers or anything. Like they don't explain anything. It's basically like, yeah, he got in an accident. He's a cyborg now, and that's about all you get. And then
Yep.
you just see him do things and you're like, oh, I guess he can just do whatever the fuck he wants to do.
Yeah.
But this movie, like, really gave us that, okay, this is the setup. His father helped him, get into this gear. And, his father had an extremely important role in the human race controlling their mother box, and how that, fed into the relationship of them together. And I don't know, just the whole thing was so fantastic the way they explained it.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, he had like the most important arc. I mean, he's kind of the one that saves the day. You know what I mean? And I love that, because I think all these other characters have had their moments. Wonder Woman's had her moments. Batman, Superman, they've all had their movies. They've had their moments. This was a breath of fresh air to give somebody else kind of that shining light.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. And touching on that too, just as far as the relevance for each member of the Justice League, they did such a good job, or Zach, bringing this to where each character has their own place, and it's not just this chaos, and no spoilers with the whole climax, but the climax of this film is handled so much better because there is purpose for each character. It's not Batman just in a video game sequence. Like, Batman holds his own. They give him something to do. They fix the Superman stuff in the climax. They really shape the whole scene to give relevance and importance, and you see that shape throughout the movie as how they start to come together, which I thought they handled really well. At first, it's like we're trying to get the band together. You can see where they kind of work together, kind of don't, and then everything comes together with this plan at the end. And you didn't get that in the first cut, not even close. It was just chaos everywhere. The Superman entrance was so piss poor, and we'll do a spoiler video talking about a couple of these things between the movies for sure, because there's some stuff that, Zack Snyder's vision really saves in this movie, 100%. And I want to talk about that, the uniting of the team. So what were your thoughts? Because with 4 hours, they really got to flesh out what it was like to go collect everybody. It wasn't this rushed thing. They really got to spend time on uniting everyone.
Yeah, I mean, you got these relationships that started building, right? I mean, you have Arthur Curry, who, he's kind of just this drunken buffoon who doesn't really care. He's just a tough guy, And then, you have Bruce Wayne, the rich guy, and I love just all of the things that went into him being like, hey, like, I'm just a rich guy. I don't have any powers. I just have money and I spend it on crazy shit,
Right.
And then, they did a great job of building these stories, building these characters and their relationships with each other. In the original one, it was just kind of all put together really quickly, and it didn't give you much time for that to marinate. This time they actually bonded, right? When they're going to retrieve Superman's body, you see those relationships kind of build when they're digging him up and things like that. So there was a lot more time put into it. And I mean, 4 hours, it went by just fine for me. I think if the Joss Whedon version didn't exist, I think it may have been, a good idea to just split this into 2 movies, part 1 and part 2, which I think was the original vision anyway.
Right.
But still, I mean, I don't think it had any problems. I think it gave you that time you needed to understand and care about the characters. I think that's been my biggest pet peeve about the Snyderverse before this, is that the stakes to me have been like whatever. The characters have been kind of like whatever. I haven't really found a movie that got me drawn to care so much about these characters, where the payoff at the end, I'm so emotionally invested that I'm just like, holy shit, they have to fucking succeed, dude.
Right.
If they don't, it's over. I totally had that with the Avengers, because the way they set that universe up, and then by the time at the end of Endgame, I'm like, holy shit, dude, it's on like Donkey Kong, motherfucker.
Yeah, dude.
And this movie did that for me, dude.
Yeah, I agree.
We were there. I was with you, bro. When that climax hit, I was on my feet cheering them on. And I haven't done that yet for a DC movie since, I don't know when, but it's just, I think that was the biggest part, is they made me care about these characters. I cared about them. I wanted them to succeed, and the stakes mattered.
Yep. Dude, you couldn't have said that any better, man. I'm not even gonna piggyback on that, dude, because that was beautifully put, man. I'm with you all the way with that. It's the movie did great and capitalized with everything. I know we've got a couple, I guess they could be considered minor gripes of things that might have helped even just elevate the experience. But I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, and one for sure is that it didn't really feel like it had that holy fuck, like, boom moment, or even a couple of those, like when you got Cap retrieving Mjolnir and you're just like, fuck, and then he starts conjuring lightning, or Thor showing up in Infinity War, having like that moment. There were a couple that were good, but nothing that was nothing that hit it, dude, where you're like marking out, you know. And I think the movie could have benefited from a couple of those.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if I compare them to the Avengers films, I think every Avenger movie had one of those oh shit moments,
right?
Know? In the original Avengers, it's the Hulk smash where he just bashes the shit out of that big beast, dude, and you're just like, oh my god, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I won't go into all of the others, but everyone has had that big moment, and in this one, it came close. There was a couple parts where I was like, oh hell yeah, dude, but you know, I think that was just I don't necessarily think it was any fault of Snyder for this film. I think it was just the setup thus far. You know, I think if we had been more invested in these characters earlier on, maybe some of those moments would have seemed more important, and they would have felt like those oh shit moments. But there are also, you know, and we can get into this more in the spoiler discussion, but some of the powers of these heroes were not fully fleshed out in this film either. And I think that could have also contributed to giving it some more of those oh shit moments where you're like, oh my God, we're seeing that full unleashed power of these folks that we haven't seen yet. You know, Superman has been fairly tamed in every movie, you know, from what he can really do. And I think they still need to give us that.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And beyond that a little bit too, we touched on the slow-mo a little bit. Some of the scenes work great for that, but there's so much slow-mo. I don't want to even say it to where it took me out of the movie, but easily it feels like almost 15 minutes of this runtime could have been shaved off with just removing a little bit of the slow-mo, because it's every opportunity that there was for it, it was definitely there. And I feel like we didn't need it quite as much as it was put in there. It was almost overly used in cases where it's just like, this has become like the stylistic piece of this whole film. Slow-mo, 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 slow-mo. Yeah. I could have done with a little bit less. It didn't bother me so much, but after the movie ended, I was like, yeah, there was quite a bit of that going on, you know?
For sure. You know, after the first couple times they've done it, I'm like, hey, we get it, man. Like, the Flash is fast. Like, and this is what he sees. I don't have to see what he sees anymore, you know?
Yeah.
I think, you know, that was a lot of that was his parts, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a great step in the right direction. Totally.
Yeah.
I am interested to see if this online, you know, petition to get this done will spark any kind of future for this storyline, because, you know, we had that huge reveal at the end, and there was a lot of stuff that happened at the end of this film after the climax that could potentially set something up in the future, but nothing's confirmed because, you know, really at this point, DC's been like, well, we're moving on from this idea, this storyline, and we're going with the Robert Pattinson Batman, you know? So it's going to be interesting. Is this going to revamp any kind of possible future?
Yeah, and that is kind of the $1 million question right now, because you would think if this builds, and I hope this would build enough steam and momentum, just if for anything else, just the fact that Zack Snyder was able to actually do this, like, this really needs to be celebrated, because this is a huge victory for just filmmakers, and for this to transcend and go beyond what this really had any right to be, if they could build some kind of an alliance, dude, to get a sequel to this, it'd be awesome. I think the biggest hurdle is just getting all these characters back together. That's the thing that sucks. I feel like so much time has passed and the DCEU has been so disbanded that that's where the struggle is going to come in. How do you get all these actors back to do it again? So it's such a toss-up, I feel like. I'd love to see it. Other thing I wanted to point out on this too, which I thought was really interesting, is you can see the scenes that were reshot for Joss's cut and what Zach's original, you know, vision was, because there's so many scenes that it's like, oh, this is familiar, but the dialogue's totally different. It's extended in a different way. And I thought everything that Zach did, dude, like, it just stuck the landing so much more. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like the forced comedy. Like, his scenes were a lot better than what we had gotten from Joss's cut. I mean, there's no other way to go around it.
Yeah, I mean, very early on, you could tell that there was huge differences in these scenes. I mean, just the introduction of Arthur Curry, you know, the whole bringing the money to meet him, and you know, that was completely redone. You know,
100% different. Yeah.
and Zach's version was so much better. It made more sense than to just say, well, what are those boxes on your wall? You
Right.
know, like that wasn't anywhere in this one. So I mean, they give you a proper setup to what these mother boxes are, Dark
Yes.
Side's history, all of that, and it's much different than what Josh did. Josh just said, "Oh yeah, well we're gonna have Bruce do this little, little adventure, and he's gonna grow a beard, and he's gonna go to this little fish town.
Don't
He's
even
gonna
get me
see some
started, dude.
boxes." He's gonna see some boxes on the wall and be like, "Oh, what those boxes are there, wall?" And
Yeah.
it was just kind of silly. It was too quick. It was too, I don't know. It just didn't make much sense. But this one actually draws it out a lot more, gives you a really nice dialogue between Bruce and Arthur, and sets that relationship up. So
Yeah.
there's a lot more, that goes in. There's so many more of those parts throughout the film that you can really tell, okay, Zach had some fantastic stuff done, and then Joss just snips, cut it all up and fucked it all up. I don't know. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no other
It's
way to put it. Like
no,
he,
dude. It's
it's
crazy.
clear. It's clear that the Warner Brothers said, "Hey, Joss, we want you to make this into this little, conglomerate, fluffed up crap fest. That's just we're here to make money. It's a cash grab. We don't want anything to do with this film." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, dude.
it was very clear. It was very clear what their intentions were. And then when you see this, you're like, oh my God, man, like how many other movies have you guys done this to?
Right.
It
And
also
that's
makes you
the
wonder if
point.
Zack Snyder wants to do this again. Like, does he
Oh,
want
yeah.
to go on this journey again with Warner Brothers? Because they already did it to him one time.
Dude.
Like, who
Yeah.
knows?
Well, that's a good point too, because like you had said in the beginning of the review, this really makes the studio look like a bunch of dumbasses, and the reason why is because now you can take Joss's Justice League, you can take Zack's Justice League, and you can look at these and compare them and see really all the fuckery that goes on in Hollywood. Like, here's a filmmaker that put this together, and this is the product you gave us. Well, now we got to see what this original vision was, and it makes you really start to think like all this bullshit that goes on behind the scenes, and you hear about films being in development hell. Well, here you go. Like now you've got right there on the platter where you can compare these kinds of things. And it makes you really wonder, how many movies have we gotten kind of dicked out of because
Yeah.
of studio involvement and stuff, man. It really makes you kind of think.
The one, it's wishful thinking, but the one thing that I hope comes from this isn't necessarily more Justice League from Zack Snyder. The thing I want to come from this is awareness that the Hollywood big media, big wigs are not here for our best interest, and they're killing the creativity that comes out of filmmakers.
Yeah.
And it
That's a
makes me
fair
hope,
thing, dude.
it makes me hope that maybe we're going to see a new age where the control is taken away from some of these big executives, these boardroom assholes who make their decisions based on profit margins instead of, let's let this artist do what their vision is. And
Right.
it sucks because some of my favorite stuff is owned by these big companies, and it's not going anywhere. But I'm hoping that at least now it spreads enough awareness to, the fans that y'all need to start getting out there and support more independent film, and let's build this, and let's take that power out of the hands of these big conglomerates and start putting films out that are more genuine, more real,
Yeah.
So
Dude,
who
100%.
knows?
100%,
Who knows?
because
But
every film franchise isn't going to be Marvel. I mean, Marvel's an anomaly, so they've developed, and now they're just going to do what they want. But it's not all like that. I mean, we've seen what's happened with Star Wars now, with things kind of getting slashed and people getting hired on and fired and creative differences and all this stuff. It's like, get your shit together, focus on the fans, and it sucks because that's the balance. Money, fans, money,
Right.
fans. Obviously, we want to put asses in seats, so make us happy. If this would have been
Yeah.
a 4-hour cut in the theater, I would have gladly paid the money to go see this, because this was fantastic. Great job, Zack Snyder. I'm so happy that we have this. Now we need a proper Blu-ray release, 4K release of this, so we
Oh,
can
man,
get that
give me the 4K.
pristine quality,
Yeah.
dude. And we'll be back to talk some spoilers for sure. We're definitely going to talk some spoilers on this and dive a little bit into a couple of things that really were fixed in this movie that kind of changed the whole viewing experience in the long run. So that is the Snyder Cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League. It is there on HBO Max. If you have been thinking about it or debating about watching this, go do yourself a huge favor and just do it. It's great. They did a really good job with it. We applaud at the end. Yeah, exactly, man. This is baker's dozen type material here.
This is A grade Zack Snyder, dude. So I
Yeah.
mean, behind Dawn of the Dead, this is my favorite thing he's done. So I'm happy with it.
And now we've got Army of the Dead coming up on Netflix pretty soon here too. So now it's like more excitement for that. More excitement. So Zack Snyder, man, thank you very much for bringing this to life, and thank you Warner Brothers for allowing him to do this, because this was a pretty cool thing, and it's awesome that we got to experience this. So if you are new to the Nerf Herders channel, here, hit that subscribe button, leave some comments down below. We'd love to know what your thoughts are on the Snyder Cut, and we will see you in the next video.